one station making history every day.
My sweet home, Chicago.
Now, Bruce Wolf and Dan Proft.
89 WLS.
10:07, 7 past 10.
John Kiss, Jake Hartford, 89 WLS. We've got a special guest.
Joining us right now is one of the senators from the great state of Oklahoma, and I know he's a great senator from the great state of Oklahoma because I've got friends who live down there, and they are in love with the man. Good morning, Senator Tom Coburn.
Good morning. How are you guys?
We're fine. Before we went to the news break, we said you were going to be on. I said, well, if folks, if you've got high blood pressure, it's going to get even higher. You came out yesterday, a couple days ago, with some facts and figures on $7.1 billion being spent by Homeland Security that just will drive people crazy.
Well, after 9/11, they formed the Department of Homeland Security, and one of the things they wanted to do was help the larger cities in America harden themselves against possible terrorist attacks. And the idea is a good one, and it's a legitimate role for the federal government. And since 2003, we've spent $35 billion. And associated with that has been no oversight, no metrics, and a considerable amount of waste. And the Homeland Security can't tell us that we're safer now than what we were because they don't have any metrics. They think we are, but they don't. And so what we outlined is, one, if we're going to spend money to make the key cities in this country safer from terrorism, shouldn't the American people be able to expect that we know that money actually accomplished some of that? That's number one. Number two is, when do you quit doing that? In other words, when's enough? It's because this money now is kind of expected every year to do things that don't harden but actually help with cities' budgets. We're even seeing overtime pay for police officers when it doesn't have anything to do with protecting them from terrorism. So we just raising the question is, if this is a legitimate role for the federal government, why don't we know what it's accomplishing, and why is there so much waste in it?
13 snow cone machines.
Yeah. That certainly protects us from terrorists who want to steal snow cones.
Who came up with the snow cone idea, Senator?
That was in Michigan, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think I can't recall exactly, but it's just little things.
Right.
We're sitting here talking about the future of our country, our financial problems, and the fact that we have $88 trillion worth of unfunded liabilities. We have no idea how we're going to keep commitments on.
All you got to do is learn how to speak Greek.
Okay,
because I do.
We're going to learn that, unfortunately, because we don't have the leadership in Washington, both in Congress or at the presidency, to actually not worry about who gets credit or blame, but solve the actual problems for the country. And that's what I came here to do. I don't care whether I'm embarrassed or made fun of. The fact is we're wasting $200 to $300 billion a year in this government, and that waste is going to go to a lower standard of living for our kids.
What is it?
It ought to stop. And this is just one example of where we're incompetent.
Well, for example, another thing that you found in your waste book, Illinois spent millions on a bad video surveillance system.
Yeah. So should the money have to come back to the federal government if you blew it? Or did the person who made that decision get fired? Or did the company that was supposed to supply that have to go to court and refund the money to the city of Chicago because they didn't deliver what they said they would? In other words, there's no accountability in this. And all I'm asking for is, if we're going to do things, let's make sure the American citizen gets good value, that it serves the purpose that it was intended to. And if it doesn't meet either of those two things, we ought not be spending our kids' money to do it or borrowing it from the Chinese.
But when you talk about the $16 trillion debt we have and all the other stuff, people look at $7.1 billion and go, well, gee, that's not really a lot of money. But it is a lot of money when you look at it and say they bought 13 snow cone machines.
Well, it's a lot of money because the way you get rid of a $1 trillion deficit every year is $1 billion at a time. We've oversighted more than everybody else in Congress combined. We put out more reports, and my frustration is we can't get members of Congress to do their job.
Well, that's because they're also in on it. So whenever there's a big federal money tree, shaking all that money. They want to. Maybe they have a brother-in-law in the next county over who wants an endorsement from the county commissioner. So let's get that snow
they have
cone.
a constituency that's benefiting from the money, even if it's wasted, and they don't have the courage to stand up and say, "We can't do this anymore."
You know, Senator, I'm probably a minority in newspapers. I'm a conservative columnist, but I understand the Republican argument with respect to domestic spending. What concerns me, however, is that I don't hear the same zeal from the Republicans on the defense side, because they have. I'm
out there. We can easily take another $40 billion a year out of the Defense Department just in waste.
What's wrong with staying with the sequestration?
Well, what's wrong with the sequestration is like your wife telling you to go out and weed the flower bed, and you crank up the mower and mow everything down.
Right, because I don't want to spend for fertilizer or water.
No, you're going to mow the bushes down and mow the weeds off, so you're going to destroy the good with the bad. Sequestration is a coward's position to get rid of spending, because then they can say, well, everything got cut the same and it's not my fault. Whereas doing the hard work of saying, here's what works and is appropriate, here's what's wasteful and isn't, we're going to get rid of this and enhance this.
Now, you support, I believe, tell me if I'm wrong, but you do support now tax increases as part of
Look, we lost the election. There's going to be revenue increases. How you do that is very important in terms of stimulating further growth. But the fact is come December 31st, all these rates are going to go up on the American public. The last thing we ought to be doing is raising taxes. But the political reality is we can't get any spending cuts unless we agree to that.
So that's what you've done, is agree to it.
Well, I think, it's not agreeing. It's the fact is revenues are going to increase. The question is how do you do it and what do you get for it?
I hope it's not for more snow cone makers.
I hope not either.
It won't be if Coburn has anything to say about it.
One last question. What do you make of Senator DeMint this morning announcing he's going to leave the Senate?
A couple of things. One is he's going to head a very valuable organization that's very good. And number two, he's frustrated that we're not fixing the real problems. He came here to fix our fiscal problems and reinstate constitutional principle government. And what he sees around him is people who really would rather get reelected than fix the long-term problems of the country.
Would you quit for the same reasons?
Absolutely.
When would you decide that?
Well, I haven't thought about it. I'm trying to fulfill the commitment I gave to the people of Oklahoma to represent their values and their thoughts about our Constitution here.
But if the Congress goes over the cliff,
we're already over the cliff. What everybody's talking about now is where's the parachute to help us land a little softer.
Well, Senator Coburn, I hope you don't quit because the American people need more people like you. Thank you, Senator.
You're good to talk
Senator.
with you.
Bye-bye.
Principled man.
Yeah, principle. Huh?
But he should, instead of spending money on snow cones, they should spend money teaching everybody how to speak Greek in this country, because that's where we're going, baby.
Homeland Security gave money to a small New Hampshire town, which used the money to buy an armored vehicle, and they used that armored vehicle to patrol the annual pumpkin festival. Okay?
Somebody needs their butt whipped, I swear.
But nobody does. Nobody does.
Because somebody had the deal on the armored cars.
Oh, all of this. I can go through the whole list of this stuff out of the $7 billion. John and Jake back here. It was interesting.
That was very interesting, and the idea that that the federal government in the fight against terrorism will spend how many hundreds of thousands on armored vehicles to protect a pumpkin festival in New Hampshire.
Here's what happened. What the senator said was back in 2000, or after 9/11, everybody said we need to come up with money, and New York is a logical target. So okay, you're going to put a lot of money into New York. Chicago's a logical target. You're going to do that. Remember Vegas at the time was talked about. Los Angeles.
You can use terrorism as an excuse to tear up Meigs Field.
Well, what happened at the time? Yes, that's right. What happened at the time was towns are all across the country, little towns, tiny towns.
They want to cash in.
They were seeing money going to the big cities, saying, "Hey, wait, we have needs too."
Right.
Send us some of that federal money.
We got our terrorism out here in like in Evansville, Indiana, or wherever.
Or wherever. I mean, there were tiny towns in Wyoming were getting, fighting for this, that, whatever. And that's why in New Hampshire, where they don't really have a crime problem, I think one death in I don't know how many years I read, they're using an armored vehicle for a pumpkin festival.
Right. But
I know.
That's why you have to cut taxes, not raise them. Because when you raise them, even like so-called fiscal, it was terrorism. Now it's fiscal cliff. And it's all about starving the beast. If you don't starve the beast, this is what they do.
The number I saw on Katrina, and the money that was spent was $140 billion, whatever it was, the federal money. They said 25% of that was just waste, fraud, and abuse.
How dare you say that? That's racist.
No, that's just the fact.
No, of course, but you know the counter argument.
Yeah, but here's the deal. New Orleans still needs help, correct?
Yes.
If 100% of that money that was allocated actually went to help them, New Orleans would be in a better state today than they are.
How many trillions would it take to raise New Orleans up from under the sea level where someone built it in the first place? Okay, so let's just
Yeah, but
right
I mean, as far as rebuilding the houses, though, but when you get 25% right off the top is going to people around the country and just stealing. Yeah. That's not going to help people.
It's not.
And unfortunately, we're in this position right now.
We don't have the money.
Well, we have to overpay to get something done. We're not
borrowing.
We're not getting stuff at a discount. We're paying retail plus.
We're borrowing 40 cents on the dollar, okay, to buy things we don't need, and we can't keep borrowing, and that's why it bothers me that Coburn, who I respect, is going to go for the tax increase. You got to cut this beast, not cut it. You have to starve it. Otherwise, just say, light the match, burn the cheese, say, oppa, this is Greece. I was there, I know it.
Don in Bloomingdale. Good morning, Don.
Hey, guys, every year in my community, they have this thing for the little kids to come out. It's called Touch a Truck. And all the local communities bring out their big dump trucks and fire trucks and what have you, and the kids can climb all over them. And I take my grandson to it, and he gets a big kick out of it. Well, this year, Carol Stream brought over this giant bus. I mean, this thing was huge. And it had this big tower that they could raise up above it, had a camera on it, and giant screen TVs inside and out. And it was a tactical headquarters. It was a mobile tactical unit. And we were looking at this thing, and all the parents are walking through it and go, wow, this thing's amazing. I said to the guy, what does this thing cost? He goes, oh, it's millions of dollars. I go, where'd you guys get the money for this? And he said, Homeland Security. And I said, did you ever use it yet? And he goes, no, we've never used it.
Did you ask him how many miles to the gallon it gets?
What's the carbon footprint on that, baby?
I would love to own it.
All right, thank you, Don.
Oh, man. See, Jake, that's it. That's how it is.
And what the Senator was talking about, the cameras, those are the ones for Cook County. I forget how much they spent. I know at the time, one of the newspapers, could have been the Trib, could have been the Times, I forget which. It was called Project Shield. And
because if it saves one child?
Well, the cameras apparently didn't work in cold weather. It was $45 million. The camera surveillance system.
If you save one life, you save the whole world.
Because apparently they tested them out at some golf tournament in the summer, not during the winter when they'd actually be used. It's part of the whole story.
Thank you very much. You're blocking the cameras.
Yeah, $45 million.
Thanks, Reverend.
People in Cook County were paying higher tax rates for cigarettes and all that other stuff. You wish you had that $45 million back right now?
Their homes are underwater. Come on.
10:21 back right after that.
89.